The bolt had torn through the ceremonial plating at an angle that should have killed her. I saw it the moment Queen Scythia stepped into the grand hall, saw the way her left side dipped fractionally with each breath, the microscopic tremor in her primary arm. The Valkyrie didn't show pain like humans did. Their four eyes narrowed in perfect synchronization, their breathing slowed to conserve energy, and their scaled skin shifted from deep violet to a sickly gray at the edges. No one else noticed. The human delegation stood in their formal lines. Ambassadors and generals alike focused on the elaborate peace treaty about to be signed. 3 years of war, millions dead on both sides, and it all came down to this moment in a hall built from the fused bones of her ancestors. I was just a maintenance tech. I fixed broken equipment, patched hull breaches, kept the life support running on the human embassy ship. I had no business being here except that Colonel Reeves wanted every able-bodied present for the historical moment. I stood in the back row, insignificant and invisible. The assassin's shot had come during the approach ceremony, hidden in the thunder of the traditional Valkyrie war drums. I'd been watching the guard patterns, old habits from my combat engineering days, and I'd seen the momentary disruption in their formation. Seen the Queen's honor guard close ranks around empty air, seen them escort her forward without breaking stride. Someone had tried to stop the peace. Someone didn't want this war to end. Scythia moved with the practiced grace of her people, each of her 4 arms positioned in the ritual gestures of reconciliation. But that damaged armor plate was grinding against her thorax with every step. I could see it from 30 meters away, could see the slight displacement that meant internal bleeding, could see the death sentence written in the incorrectly seated composite scales. She had minutes, maybe less. The human ambassador began his speech, flowery words about unity and shared futures. Scythia's second most dominant eye flickered just for an instant before refocusing. Her breathing had slowed further. The Valkyrie metabolic response to trauma, shutting down non-essential functions to preserve the core. My hands found the portable repair kit I always carried, a reflex from years of keeping ships running with whatever I could scavenge. I stepped out of formation, past the startled faces of human dignitaries, past the sudden tension of Valkyrie guards raising weapons designed to liquefy human bone. Wait. Scythia's voice cut through the rising chaos. Her language sounded like crystal breaking, but the translator implant rendered it perfectly. Let the small one approach. Small. To her people, I probably was. Valkyrie stood 3 meters tall, all muscle and armored hide evolved in a gravity well twice Earth's. But she'd stopped her guards from killing me, and that meant something. I crossed the space between our species with my hands visible, kit held low and non-threatening. Up close, the damage was worse than I'd thought. The armor plate had been struck by a needle round, the kind that expanded on impact. It had pushed the ceremonial armor inward, and the Queen had been standing here bleeding into her own chest cavity while preparing to sign a treaty that would save billions of lives. Your armor is breached, I said quietly. Just for her. You're dying. I know. Let me fix it. You are a technician of machines, not living flesh. I'm a technician of armor. Yours is killing you. I can stop that. For a moment that stretched like years, she simply looked at me. Behind us, I could hear confused murmuring, the colonel's angry whisper demanding to know what the hell I thought I was doing. But in that moment, there was only the Queen and the choice she had to make. She knelt. The Valkyrie guards went rigid with shock. In their culture, royalty never lowered themselves to anyone, ever. The human delegation fell silent, sensing something significant, even if they didn't understand it. Be swift, Scythia said, and pray to your gods you do not fail. I opened my kit with steady hands despite the terror flooding my system. The armor piece was ceremonial but functional, layered composites designed to flex with Valkyrie physiology. The needle round had created a pressure point that drove the plate into her thorax with every breath, widening the internal wound. I had to remove it, had to seal the breach. Had to do it without causing more damage or triggering her guards into turning me into a red mist. My fingers found the release points, mechanisms I'd studied in technical manuals during our intelligence briefings about Valkyrie equipment. The plate shifted, and the Queen's breathing hitched. Purple blood, almost black in the hall's lighting, welled at the wound. Don't move, I whispered. I was not planning to, she replied, and somehow I heard dark humor in her breaking crystal voice. I worked. The Valkyrie healing gel in my kit was standard issue for joint human Valkyrie operations, a thick, bioreactive compound that sealed wounds and promoted cellular regeneration. I'd used it on equipment before, never on living flesh. My hands moved with the precision my trainers had beaten into me during combat engineering school. Clean the wound. Apply pressure. Cerithia's blood pressure was dropping. I could see it in the way her skin color shifted, gray creeping toward her core. The guards stood frozen in their ancient armor, weapons half raised, caught between the instinct to protect their queen and her direct order to let me work. The wound ran deeper than I'd feared. The needle round had fragmented, leaving microscopic shards embedded in the muscle tissue. Each piece was a ticking clock counting down to sepsis or organ failure. I couldn't remove them here, but I could stabilize the damage long enough for proper medical intervention. "Your name," the queen said as I worked. Her voice had steadied as if kneeling had somehow centered her. "Marcus Webb, Your Majesty. Maintenance Technician, 3rd class. 3rd class." She made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The lowest of your ranks saves the highest of mine. There is poetry in that." "There's a fragment near your primary lung," I said, ignoring the poetry. "I'm going to seal around it." "It's going to hurt. Pain and I are old companions, Marcus Webb." I applied the gel with careful precision, watching it foam and harden, creating a temporary internal brace. Her breathing stabilized fractionally. Good. But the armor plate still hung loose, and without it properly seated, the wound would reopen the moment she stood. The ceremonial armor was a work of art, each plate inscribed with the names of her lineage going back 3,000 years. I couldn't just slap a patch on it and call it fixed. It needed to be perfect, or the insult would be worse than her death. "Your hands are steady," Cerithia observed. "You have done this before." "Fixed queens, this is a first." I meant killing. The words stopped me cold. I looked up and met all 4 of her eyes. "Afghanistan," I said quietly. "Syria. The Belt Wars. I was a combat engineer before I was a technician. I've killed. I've also saved lives by keeping equipment running when it shouldn't have been possible." Which do you prefer?" "Saving?" She nodded. A gesture borrowed from human contact. "Then save me, Marcus Webb. Save me and save this piece." I returned to the armor, examining the internal coupling mechanisms. The impact had twisted them, creating the pressure point that had nearly killed her. I needed to straighten them, reseat the plate, and lock it in place without causing additional trauma. My multi-tool had a micro-adjuster, designed for calibrating sensor arrays. I used it now to carefully bend the coupling points back into alignment, working by feel as much as sight. The queen remained perfectly still, her breathing controlled, and even despite the pain I knew I was causing. "Why did you step forward?" she asked. "Because you were dying and no one else saw it. That is observation, not motivation." I paused, considering. Around us, the hall had gone silent. The human delegation watched with held breath. The Valkyrie guards remained frozen in their paradox of duty. "Because I'm tired of war," I said finally. "Because I've seen too many people die for causes they barely understood. Because this treaty might actually mean something, and I wasn't going to let it fail because of a coward with a needle gun. You assume I want peace. You wouldn't kneel for anything less than the survival of your people." The armor plate aligned. I felt it click into place, felt the mechanism lock with the satisfying precision of properly engineered equipment. The queen's breathing deepened immediately as the pressure released from her thorax. "The healing gel will hold for 6 hours," I said, closing my kit. "You need proper medical attention before then. The fragments need to be removed." Quote, "I will see the treaty signed first, Your Majesty." "First," her voice carried absolute authority. She began to rise, and I stepped back, giving her space. The Valkyrie guards lowered their weapons fractionally, still uncertain but no longer actively ready to kill me. Cerithia stood to her full height, 3 meters of alien majesty, armor gleaming in the hall's light. The repair was invisible unless you knew where to look. She moved her left arm through a full range of motion, testing the fix. "Acceptable," she declared. Then she turned those 4 eyes on me again. "You have saved my life, Marcus Webb. By the old laws of my people, I owe you a life debt. I don't know what that means. It means you are mine to protect as I am yours. It means our fates are bound until death or resolution. It means you can never again be 3rd class anything." Before I could process that, she turned to face the assembly. "Let it be known that this human, Marcus Webb, has entered my service under the ancient rites. His life is my responsibility. His actions reflect upon my house. His honor is my honor." The Valkyrie guards struck their weapons against their armor in unison, a thunderous acknowledgement. The human delegation stood in stunned confusion. Colonel Reeves looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Now, Sarathia said, we will proceed with the treaty, and our small savior will stand at my side while we do so. I took it. Her scaled skin was warm, warmer than I'd expected, and her grip was gentle despite the strength I knew she possessed. We walked together to the treaty table, an alien queen and a human technician, while two species watched and tried to understand what they were seeing. The ambassador stammered through the rest of his speech. The Valkyrie prime minister presented the treaty scroll, inscribed on preserved skin according to their tradition. Both leaders affixed their marks, and it was done. 3 years of war ended in a moment, but I barely registered it. I was too busy trying to understand what had just happened to my life. The medical bay on the Valkyrie command ship was nothing like human facilities. Everything was scaled for beings 3 meters tall, and the air carried a metallic tang that made my sinuses burn. But the doctors were efficient, and they worked on Queen Scifi with the kind of desperate focus that told me how close I'd actually come to failing. They'd let me stay. More accurately, Scifi had insisted I stay, and her guards had made it clear that her word was absolute law aboard this ship. So I sat in a corner watching alien surgeons extract needle fragments from her thorax while trying not to think about the fact that I was now apparently bound to her by some ancient law I didn't understand. The tissue damage is extensive, one doctor said, their translator rendering the clinical assessment in flat tones. If the armor plate had remained displaced another 30 minutes, the internal bleeding would have been irreversible. But I did not remain displaced, Sarathia replied from the surgical table, her voice steady despite the fact that they had her chest cavity open to the air. Thanks to the small human with steady hands. Your Majesty, I appreciate the honor, but I don't actually know what a life debt means in practical terms. It means you are now part of my household, she said, as if this was obvious. It means you are under my protection, and I am under yours. It means your service to me is repaid by my service to you. It is the oldest law of my people, predating our unification, stretching back to the tribal wars of our pre-industrial age. I'm a maintenance technician. You are more than that now. One of the guards, a massive Valkyrie whose armor bore the scars of 100 battles, stepped forward. Forgive my intrusion, Radiance, but the human does not understand our ways. Perhaps explanation would serve better than declaration. Sarathia made a gesture I didn't recognize, but the guard apparently took it as permission to continue. The life debt is sacred. When one saves the life of another at great personal risk, a bond is formed. You could have remained silent, could have let our queen die. Instead, you risked execution to save her. That courage creates obligation on both sides. I didn't do it for a reward, which is precisely why the debt exists. Those who act without thought of gain are rare enough to be treasured. The guard's 4 eyes studied me with unsettling intensity. You are now family to her in a way that transcends blood. Her enemies are yours. Her battles are yours, and yours are hers. I don't have any enemies. You do now, Sarathia said from the table. Whoever tried to kill me will try again. They will also try to kill you, to sever the bond and shame my house. I'd been so focused on the immediate crisis that I hadn't thought about the assassin. They were still out there, still dangerous, and now I'd painted a target on my own back. The needle round, I said slowly. It was fired during the approach ceremony. Your guards closed ranks around the shooter's position, but they didn't apprehend anyone. The medical bay went very quiet. You saw that? The guard asked. I was watching the patterns. Old habit. I saw the disruption in your formation. Saw the way you moved to protect the queen while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. Sarathia's eyes gleamed. Tell me exactly what you observed. I closed my eyes, pulling up the memory. The shot came from the upper gallery, eastern side. Your honor guard shifted 3 degrees to their left, putting themselves between you and the threat. The movement was smooth enough that most people wouldn't notice, but it created a gap in the formation for approximately 2 seconds. Which guard position? The guard demanded. 3rd from the left, rear rank. They stepped forward half a pace to close the gap when the others shifted. The guard and Sarathia exchanged a look that needed no translation. They knew exactly who I was describing. Commander Vethris, Sarathia said quietly. Head of my personal security for 20 years. Trusted advisor. Friend. Or traitor, the guard growled. We do not know that, Sarathia said sharply. The disruption could have been innocent. The shooter could have been positioned anywhere in that gallery. With respect, Radiance, the human's observation suggests otherwise. I felt like I was intruding on something private. I could be wrong. I only saw it for a moment. Human eyes evolved for persistence hunting, the guard said. Your pattern recognition is superior to ours in certain contexts. If you say you saw a disruption, you saw it. The doctors finished their work, sealing Sarethia's thorax with bioadhesive and regenerative mesh. She sat up smoothly, apparently unbothered by the fact that she'd just undergone major surgery. We will investigate, she declared. Quietly. If Vethris is involved, we must know the scope of the conspiracy. If they are innocent, we must protect them from false accusation. She turned to me. And you, Marcus Webb, will remain at my side until the threat is neutralized. Your Majesty, I'm not trained for protection duty. You are trained to see what others miss. You are trained to fix what is broken. Both skills will serve us well in the days ahead. She stood, and despite everything, moved with perfect grace. Besides, the life debt is not optional. You are mine now, and I am yours. Where I go, you go. A human lieutenant appeared in the doorway, looking harried. Technician Webb. Colonel Reeves is demanding your immediate return to the embassy ship. He says you violated protocol and he wants an explanation. Tell the colonel, Sarethia said before I could respond, that Technician Webb is no longer under his command. He is under mine. If the colonel has concerns, he may address them to me directly. Your Majesty, I don't think... Tell him. In the span of 3 hours, I'd gone from invisible maintenance tech to personally bound to an alien queen who'd just declared me part of her household. My career was probably over. My life would never be the same. And somewhere out there, an assassin was planning their next move. This is insane, I said. Yes, Sarethia agreed, but it is also fate. You saved my life, Marcus Webb. Now we will save each other. The next morning, I woke up in quarters that were definitely not standard for a maintenance tech. The ceiling was 12 meters high, the walls were carved from what looked like black marble, and the bed could have accommodated 3 Velakari comfortably. I felt like a child in a giant's dollhouse. A guard stood outside my door. Not to keep me in, I realized, but to protect me. The reality of my situation hit me like a freight hauler. I dressed in my standard-issue jumpsuit, the only clothes I had, and stepped out to find the guard waiting with what I could only describe as patient amusement in their posture. The Radiance requests your presence at morning council, they said. I don't think I'm supposed to be at royal councils. You will learn this quickly. The council chamber was vast, with holographic displays showing star charts, troop movements, economic data. A dozen Velkari stood around a central table, all of them wearing the elaborate armor that denoted high rank. They turned as one when I entered, and the weight of their collective gaze almost sent me retreating back through the door. Sarethia sat at the head of the table, and she gestured for me to approach. My advisors, she said, indicating the assembled Velkari. And this is Marcus Webb, the human who saved my life. He is under my protection and speaks with my authority in matters of security and technical assessment. One of the advisors, an ancient Velkari whose armor bore so many battle scars it was more scar than armor, leaned forward. Radiance, with respect, the human is untrained in our ways. How can he speak with your authority when he does not understand our culture? He acted when we stood frozen. His ignorance of our culture did not prevent him from saving my life. Perhaps his outside perspective is exactly what we need. She activated the holographic display and an image of the Grand Hall appeared, frozen at the moment of the approach ceremony. Commander Vethris has served me faithfully for 2 decades, but Marcus observed a tactical anomaly in the honor guard formation at the precise moment I was shot. I want to review all security footage from that day. I want to know who was in the Eastern Gallery, and I want to know if anyone on my staff has been acting unusually. You suspect one of us? Another advisor asked, their voice sharp with offense. I suspect someone wanted to prevent the peace treaty, Sarethia said. Whether that person is in this room or hiding in the shadows, we will find them. For the next 3 hours, I sat in uncomfortable silence while the Velkari Council debated security protocols and political implications. But I watched, and I noticed things. The ancient advisor's breathing quickened whenever Vethris was mentioned. Another advisor kept glancing at the star charts showing the border territories. A third seemed to be avoiding eye contact with Sarethia entirely. When the council broke for midday meal, Sarethia pulled me aside. What did you observe? She asked. Your advisors are scared, I said. They're trying to hide it, but they're terrified. Either they know something or they're afraid of being suspected. Which one seemed most afraid? I described the 3 I'd noticed. Sarethia nodded slowly. High Chancellor Merith, Trade Minister Zavros, and Military Coordinator Shellis. 3 of my most trusted advisors? She paused. Or 3 potential traitors, or 3 people who were afraid of being caught in the crossfire of a political assassination. You give them the benefit of doubt. Fear doesn't equal guilt. You would have made a poor spy, Marcus Webb. You are too honest. I'd been told that before. A junior guard rushed into the chamber, their armor clattering. Radiance, we have found something. The security footage from the Eastern Gallery, there is a gap. 17 seconds missing at the exact time of the attack. Sarethia's skin shifted to a darker purple. Anger. Someone edited the footage. It would require high-level access, the guard said. Someone with security clearances above standard protocols. Someone on my staff, Sarethia finished. The hunt had narrowed. We weren't looking for a random assassin anymore. We were looking for someone close to the Queen, someone trusted enough to have access to the most secure systems on the ship, someone who had been planning this for long enough to position themselves perfectly. I want a full audit of all security access logs for the past 6 months, Sarethia commanded. I want to know every person who accessed the footage, every person who had the capability to edit it, and every person who was in the Eastern Gallery during the ceremony. That will take time, the guard said. Then start immediately. As the guard rushed out, I found myself studying the holographic display of the Grand Hall again. Something about it bothered me. Some detail my mind had caught but hadn't fully processed. The honor guard formation, the way they'd moved. The precision of it. Your Majesty, I said slowly. When your guards shifted formation, how do they know where to move? Is it instinct, training, or do they follow specific commands? In this case, Vethris. So Vethris would have directed the formation shift that put them between you and the shooter. Yes, which means Vethris either saw the threat and reacted to protect you, or Vethris knew where the threat was, because they orchestrated it. Sarethia went very still. If Vethris is the traitor, they have had access to every aspect of my security for 20 years. They know every protocol, every safe house, every emergency procedure, and they know you trusted them enough to die for you, which makes this either the worst betrayal imaginable or a terrible misunderstanding that could destroy an innocent person's life. I heard the pain in her voice, the struggle between suspicion and loyalty. This wasn't just about finding a traitor. This was about the possibility that someone she'd considered family had tried to murder her. We need proof, I said. Real proof, not just suspicion. How do you suggest we obtain that? I thought for a moment, my mind working through the problem like I would any technical challenge. We need to make them feel safe. If Vethris is the traitor, they think they failed. They'll try again, but only when they believe they have another opportunity. If we act suspicious now, they'll go to ground and we'll never find out who else is involved. You suggest we do nothing? I suggest we act normally while we investigate quietly. Keep Vethris in their position. Keep the other advisors close. But watch everything they do. You think like a hunter. I think like someone who's had to find leaks in pressurized systems while the ship was still flying. Same principle, find the weak point without causing a catastrophic failure.
Very well, we hunt quietly.
But Marcus? Yes. We do not leave my sight. If I am the target and you are bound to me, you are also a target now. We protect each other, or we die together. Instead, I found myself nodding. I'd stumbled into something bigger than I understood, but I was committed now. The life debt, the mystery, the danger, it was all connected, and the only way out was through. Together, I agreed. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in political theater. Sarethia went about her normal routine, councils, diplomatic meetings, reviews of military deployments, and I shadowed her through all of it, the human technician who had somehow become part of her inner circle. The Velkari court adapted with surprising speed. What had started as shocked whispers became acceptance, then curiosity. By the second day, advisors were asking me questions about human engineering, about perspective, about how our two species might work together now that the war was over. But beneath the normalcy, we were hunting. The security audit revealed something interesting. In the 6 months before the assassination attempt, 17 different people had accessed the Grand Hall footage system, but only 3 had the clearance to edit and delete recordings. Vethris, High Chancellor Mareth, and the Queen herself. Mareth, the ancient advisor who'd been nervous during the council meeting. We brought them in quietly, just a routine meeting about post-treaty protocols. Sarethia and I sat across from Mareth while guards I'd been told to trust stood at the doors. Your service to my house spans 40 years, Sarethia said. You have guided me through war and peace, through prosperity and hardship, which is why I must ask you directly. Did you edit the security footage from the treaty ceremony? Mareth's skin went completely gray. Not the gray of dying, but the gray of absolute terror. Radiance, They stopped, struggled with something internal.
Yes. The room temperature seemed to drop.
Why? Sarethia's voice was deadly calm. Because I was protecting someone. Because I made a terrible mistake, and when I realized what had happened, I panicked. Mareth's 4 eyes were fixed on the table. I accessed the footage to review the ceremony details. While I had it open, I saw the disruption in the honor guard. I saw Vethris step forward. And I saw my daughter in the eastern gallery, in the exact position the shot came from. I felt pieces click together in my mind. Your daughter, I said. She's part of the security staff? She requested permission to observe the ceremony from the gallery for her reports. Mareth looked up, and I saw anguish in their eyes. I thought if I deleted the footage showing her position, no one would suspect her. I was trying to protect my child. From being accused of trying to kill you. Mareth's voice broke. She is young, idealistic, and she has made no secret of her belief that the peace treaty is premature. But she would never... She is not an assassin. You do not know that, Sarethia said quietly. I know my daughter. As I thought I knew Vethris, Sarethia stood, began to pace. Where is she now? She's been confined there since I heard about the investigation. I told her not to speak to anyone until I could explain. I exchanged a glance with Sarethia. We'd found our editor, but that didn't necessarily mean we'd found our shooter. We need to talk to her, I said. 20 minutes later, we stood outside a small quarters in the junior officer section. Mareth had given us the access codes, and 2 guards flanked the door with weapons ready. The young Velkari who answered was perhaps a third Sarethia's age, her scales still bright with youth. She took one look at the queen and dropped to her knees. Radiance, I swear I did not... Stand, Sarethia commanded, and explain. The story came out in a rush. The daughter, Calith, had indeed been opposed to the treaty. She'd written papers about it, spoken at gatherings, argued that humanity needed more time to prove trustworthiness, but on the day of the ceremony she'd been in the gallery purely as an observer. I saw the shooter, she said, her voice shaking. There were 3 positions to my right, disguised as a cultural observer. I saw them raise the weapon, saw them fire. I tried to raise the alarm, but by the time I'd processed what was happening, they were gone. Describe them, I said. Tall, even for our people. They wore observer robes with the hood up. I never saw their face clearly. She paused. But I saw their hands. They had a scar pattern on their left palm. Ritual scars from the old tribal customs. The pattern of the warrior caste. Sarethia went very still. Vethris bears those scars. So do half the military commanders over 40, I pointed out. It's identifying but not conclusive. But it narrows the field. Sarethia turned to Calith. You saw this and did not report it? I was afraid. My father told me the footage had been edited to protect me, and I thought if I came forward, I would implicate him as well. I am a coward, Radiance. I deserve whatever punishment you see fit. I watched the young Velkari tremble, saw the genuine fear and regret in her posture. She'd made mistakes, but I didn't think she was our assassin. You will write down everything you remember, Sarethia said. Every detail, no matter how small. And you will submit to a memory scan to verify your account. Of course, Radiance. We left her there, with guards posted to ensure she didn't run. In the corridor, Mareth waited with the posture of someone expecting execution. Your daughter's account will be verified, Sarethia said. If it proves truthful, she will face consequences for her silence, but not for the attack itself. As for you, editing security footage is a serious crime, even with the best of intentions. I understand. But you are also one of my oldest advisors, and you acted out of love for your child. I will take that into account. Sarethia paused. You are confined to your quarters until this matter is resolved. If I find you have lied to me about anything, the consequences will be severe. After Mareth was escorted away, I turned to Sarethia. We still don't know who the shooter was. But we know they have warrior caste scars. They are tall even by our standards, and they were able to disguise themselves as a cultural observer well enough to gain access to a restricted gallery. There are 47 individuals on this ship who meet those criteria, including Vethris. Including Vethris? We spent the rest of the day cross-referencing names with access logs, movement patterns, and political affiliations. By evening, we'd narrowed the list to 12 suspects. Vethris was one of them. So was Trade Minister Zavras, whose breathing had quickened during the council meeting. So was a military coordinator I hadn't met yet, and 9 others in positions of trust and authority. How do we narrow it further? I asked, staring at the names. We give them another opportunity, Sarithia said. We announce that I will be giving a speech tomorrow in the same grand hall where the treaty was signed. We make the security protocols public, and we watch to see who positions themselves where. You're using yourself as bait. I am using us both as bait. Where I go, you go. Remember? The life debt. The bond that meant we protected each other or died together. This is insane, I said for the second time in 3 days. Yes, she agreed, but it will work. Whoever tried to kill me once will try again, especially if they think they have another perfect opportunity. It would work, but it also meant walking back into the kill zone, knowing someone on her own staff wanted her dead. I thought about backing out. I thought about finding Colonel Reeves and begging to be transferred back to normal maintenance duty. I thought about running as far from this political nightmare as I could get, but I looked at Sarathia, at this alien queen who had knelt to let me save her life, who had bound herself to me in ways I still didn't fully understand, and I knew I couldn't leave. Okay, I said, let's catch ourselves an assassin. The next morning the announcement went out across all channels. Queen Sarithia would address both human and Valkyrie delegations in the Grand Hall at midday, discussing the implementation of the peace treaty and the new era of cooperation between species. The security protocols were made public, as promised. Standard honor guard formation. Cultural observers in the galleries. Diplomatic security from both species maintaining perimeter control. And one change, a human technician would stand at the Queen's right hand throughout the speech. I spent the morning preparing. Not weapons or armor, but tools. My diagnostic scanner, calibrated to pick up electronic signatures. A micro-drone the size of my thumbnail, equipped with a camera and capable of silent flight. And my repair kit, because at this point it felt like a good luck charm. An hour before the speech, Sarathia called me to her quarters. I have something for you, she said, and presented me with a piece of Valkyrie armor, a chest plate scaled down to human proportions but crafted with the same intricate care as her ceremonial pieces. I can't accept this, I said. You can, and you will. You are part of my household now. You will dress accordingly. The armor fit perfectly, surprisingly light despite its appearance. The plates shifted with my movement, and I realized it was designed to work with human physiology. Thank you, I said quietly. Thank me by staying alive through the next few hours. We walked to the Grand Hall together, surrounded by guards who had been personally vetted, the same hall where I had fixed her armor 3 days ago. The same space where someone had tried to end the peace before it could begin. The galleries were filling with observers. I activated my microdrone and sent it up, programmed to scan for weapons and record everything it saw. The honor guard took their positions. I recognized the patterns now, understood the subtle language of their movements, and I saw Vethris at the formation's head, standing exactly where they had stood during the treaty ceremony. Sarithia took her place at the podium. I stood to her right, feeling ridiculously small next to her, but trying to project the same calm confidence she radiated. The speech began. And through my drone's feed, I watched the Eastern Gallery fill with observers, watched them take their positions, watched for any sign of the tall figure with warrior-cast scars. Then I saw it. Not in the Eastern Gallery this time, but in the Western one. A hooded figure, taller than those around them, moving with practiced economy of motion. They settled into a position that had clear line of sight to the podium. To Sarethia. To me. I triggered the alert signal we'd agreed on, a subtle gesture that looked like I was adjusting my armor. The guards began to move, slowly and carefully, not wanting to spook the suspect into action, but the figure must have seen something, must have realized the trap. They reached into their robes, and I saw the gleam of metal. Down! I shouted, throwing myself at Sarethia. The needle round passed through the space where her head had been a fraction of a second before. The honor guard rushed the Western Gallery. Sarethia rolled to her feet with inhuman grace, and I saw her pull a weapon I hadn't known she was carrying, but the figure was already moving, throwing off the robes to reveal security armor underneath. They vaulted the gallery railing in a move that should have been impossible, landed in the hall proper, and started running for the exit. The guards closed in. The figure drew a blade, the traditional Valkyrie weapon designed to tear through armor. They were cornered, and they knew it. Then they turned, and I saw their face. Not Vethris. Not Mareth. Not any of the suspects we'd identified. Military Coordinator Shellis, the one who'd been avoiding eye contact with Sarethia during the council meeting. The one I'd noted as frightened, not frightened of being caught. Frightened of failing. Stand down, Sarithia commanded, her weapon trained on Shelley's. You are surrounded. There is no escape. Chalice laughed, a harsh breaking crystal sound. There is always escape, false queen. Death before dishonor. Death before submission to humanity. The war is over, Sarithia said.
We chose peace.
You chose weakness, Chalice spat. Our people are warriors. We were winning. And you surrendered to these soft-skinned parasites because you grew tired of fighting. I felt the insult like a physical blow, but I stayed silent. This wasn't my fight to argue. We were destroying ourselves, Sarithia said quietly. Both species were. The war would have continued until nothing remained. Better nothing than this. Shelley's gestured at me. You bind yourself to them. You grant them status in our house. You betray everything we are. I save everything we are. Our culture, our people, our future. You save nothing. And for that, you must die. Chalice moved with the speed of a trained warrior, blade flashing towards Sarithia, but the queen was faster and the guards were already in motion. The fight lasted less than 10 seconds. Chalice was skilled, but one warrior against 20 trained guards was no contest. They went down hard, blade knocked from her hand, armor pinning them to the floor. Why? Sarithia asked, standing over them. You have served with honor for 15 years. Why betray that now? When you knelt to that human, when you let them touch you, repair you, bind themselves to you. You made us weak. I made us survive. Survival is not enough. We are Velkari. We are meant for glory. Sarithia looked at them for a long moment, and I saw something like pity in her expression. Glory without wisdom is just another word for extinction. I am sorry you could not see that. The guards took Chalice away. The galleries erupted in chaos, human and Velkari alike processing what they'd just witnessed. But Sarithia remained calm, returned to the podium, and continued her speech as if nothing had happened, because that was what queens did. They endured. Afterward, in the quiet of her quarters, she finally let the armor drop. I trusted them, she said quietly. Sheila's helped plan our defensive strategies for 3 years. They saved countless lives with their tactical brilliance, and they tried to kill me because I chose peace. I didn't have words for that. So I just sat with her in the silence, two beings from different worlds, bound by chance and choice. Thank you, she said finally, for seeing the threat, for acting, for being here. Where else would I be? I asked. We're bound, remember. Your battles are mine.
Yes.
And that bond just became more permanent than you realize. She pulled up a holographic document, and I recognized the formal language of Velkari legal proceedings. By saving my life a second time, in public, in front of both our peoples, you have fulfilled the first obligation of the life debt. Now it transforms into something else. A permanent bond of house and honor. You are not just under my protection, Marcus Webb. You are family now in the eyes of my people. As binding as blood, as permanent as bone. I stared at the document, at the formal declarations and legal terminology that I barely understood. What does that mean in practical terms? It means you can never again be just a technician. It means you have status in my court, responsibilities to my house. It means we are bound until death, and even that might not end it. Our people believe that such bonds transcend mortality. I fixed your armor, I said weakly. I'm not qualified for this. You fixed more than my armor. You fixed the moment. You fixed the peace. You fixed the fate of both our peoples. She smiled, and I saw the weight of command ease fractionally. Besides, you think like a hunter and work like an engineer. Those are exactly the skills I need in an advisor. An advisor. Did you think I would let you return to maintaining environmental systems after all this? I hadn't thought about it at all, really. Too much had happened too fast. I don't know your culture, I protested. I don't know your politics. I barely know how to wear this armor properly. Add. You will learn, and in the meantime, you will provide exactly what you have provided so far. An outside perspective, steady hands, and the willingness to act when others hesitate. What do you say, Marcus Webb? Will you accept this bond? Will you stand with me as we navigate this new peace, find the other conspirators who supported Shelley's, and build something lasting between our peoples? I looked at her hand, at the scaled skin that was so alien and yet had become so familiar in just a few days. Then I thought about standing in this hall, watching species come together, knowing I'd helped make that happen. Yes, I said, taking her hand. I'll stand with you. Good, because tomorrow we have to explain to your Colonel Reeves why you are now technically an ambassador with diplomatic immunity. I groaned. He's going to hate this. Yes, Scifi agreed, and her 4 eyes gleamed with something that looked a lot like mischief. That will be entertaining to watch, and despite everything, the danger, the politics, the complete upheaval of my life, I found myself laughing. 3 days ago, I'd been a maintenance tech. Now I was part of an alien queen's household, bound by ancient laws to someone I barely knew but somehow trusted completely. I'd fixed her armor as she leaned close. And in that moment, I'd changed the fate of us both.